And we're very fortunate today to talk about some important Battle Creek stuff that's going on that we're very excited about. And speaking about BC Vision, and we have a couple of folks in the studio right now to discuss that with us today. Kim Carter's the superintendent of Battle Creek Public Schools. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to have you back again. You've been, we might as well just put a sign out there with a parking spot, with your name on it there.
Thanks for having me.
We already have one for Vince Pavone.
Good morning.
Vince, good morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
BC Vision has been, we're still in our first year of BC Vision. Is that right?
I really don't think it's the first year. I think we're probably a little bit further along than that. I think it's probably our second year, maybe a second year anniversary coming up. I was looking at some old documents and stuff, printouts that we had, and so it's going pretty well right now. That there is a new structure that we put in place. The advisory committee, which is going to have a backbone organization that sits at the community foundation, was established. Kim and myself are both members of that advisory committee, and we're responsible for communication, nominating and accepting new members to the steering committee, and also negotiating through the community foundation for new contracts for some of the vendors that have been used over the last year.
Let's back up just a little bit, because I'm flipping burgers with some friends on Saturday, and we were talking about stuff that's coming up on the radio, and I mentioned BC Vision, and they said, and they'd recently moved back here. I said, well, what's that? And I'm like, well, it's a Battle Creek vision, visiony thing. It's kind of hard for just the layman on the street maybe to describe what you're trying to do and what you've been doing. And I thought maybe I'd ask you if somebody moved back here and heard about BC Vision and asked what it was, what would you tell them?
Well, BC Vision is a community-driven movement for change. It's focused on creating a place where we can all live, work, and play. It really is about taking all of the individuals who are committed to Battle Creek, bringing them all together, and thinking about how we create a community that's thriving.
Wow. I think that's pretty good. And I think we need that. I mean, we love our community, but there's some things that need to change.
And I think that and I hearken back to, I think it was 3 years ago that some of this started, where Lejeune was newly installed as the CEO of the Kellogg Foundation. John Bryant, who had just announced some jobs moving to Grand Rapids and took a lot of heat in the community for that, both came together and decided to work together on an initiative to make Battle Creek a better place to live, work, and play. And that was the genesis for what ultimately turned into BC Vision. Community leaders came together, and then we engaged the community through different surveys and town meetings and all types of different communications to try and bring people together and get the feedback of what the priorities were for the community as we visioned out to our future. And everything seemed to organize around a few major topics, if you will. One was culture vitality. How do we make this a great place to play and enjoy and have raise a family? The other was college career readiness, which ultimately ended up in a significant investment by the Kellogg Foundation in Battle Creek Public Schools. Also, an investment in early childhood education. Small business, we want to make this a place for small businesses to be able to flourish, with particular emphasis on women and minorities. Large business, which part of that was ended up being kind of assimilated by BCU, but ultimately ended up with John Bryant serving on the BCU board and being a leader with a goal of 1,000 well-paid jobs within the next 5 years. And then the last one is workforce development, looking for different barriers for people in the community who want to work. Okay, maybe don't have training, transportation, daycare, and are kind of that labor force that's untapped, and figuring out different ways to in those communities where people are having a hard time connecting to jobs, and I think that's
Wow.
probably how.
Between the two of you, you've just spelled it out very clearly, I think. And so we'll rerun that segment a couple of times
Okay.
this week for sure. Because I think that kind of gets anybody who has a question in their mind. I think you've just kind of answered what we're trying to do with BC Vision. They've heard BC Vision, but a lot of people, maybe it hasn't registered with them yet what that is. And so I appreciate that. Now, I want to find out what exactly is being done, where you're at, and what the latest news is, and we'll do that when we come back here in just a moment. We're talking BC Vision today. Vince Pavone and Kim Carter are our guests, and they're both heavily involved in BC Vision. They've just told us basically what it is, and last week, the steering committee, and Vince mentioned that earlier, got together. What exactly is the steering committee? I mean, how many people are on that, and what is their mission?
So I think there are approximately 22 individuals on the steering committee right now, with a possibility of up to 26. And the whole goal of the steering committee is to provide some oversight, guidance, and to ensure that the work is actually moving forward.
Man, that's got to be a long meeting with 22 people. I suggest
Actually, it wasn't. We had a meeting. Our meeting last Thursday was 2 hours, and it flew by. I have to admit, the first 15 minutes kind of dragged, but everybody kind of got their confidence, felt comfortable. There was trust in the room, and there was a free exchange of ideas. Not everybody agreed on everything, but it was actually, I think, one of our better meetings. I think everybody felt like we were finally having substantive conversations about things that mattered to real people. So,
is it kind of a brainstorming group, the steering committee? Or?
I wouldn't necessarily call it. The brainstorming goes on in the different committees.
Uh-huh.
Okay, the steering committee, to Kim's point, kind of keeps things on track. One of the things that we really wanted to find out was if there continued to be engagement, if people were still showing up at meetings, giving ideas, and being generous with their time, and making an investment. And pretty much most of the committees, I felt like there continues to be engagement, and there can always be more, and that'll be our pitch at the end of how to get people involved. But
Yeah.
It seems like we continue to have great participation from the community.
What were some of the things at that meeting that were discussed that came out of that meeting?
I think what was great is that you can see that every single committee is making some forward movement. And it's important to note that we want to make sure that this isn't the same thing that we've done in the past, and that we're really getting results for individuals. So Workforce Development Action Team, they have been hosting pre-employment fairs, and they reported and gave us an update on how they've been able to reach over 300 attendees to provide them with opportunities to get work and meet their goals in that committee. We also heard from the College and Career Readiness team around all of the initiatives that they've begun work on, including communities and schools being a part across Greater Battle Creek, and of course the investment in Battle Creek Public Schools. So there's a lot of great work happening, and we want to make sure that the community understands that individuals are working hard to move this work forward.
Great. So what are a couple of other things? You mentioned jobs pretty heavily.
Some of the things that have happened recently, it was Generation E had launched a new mentoring program focused on minority and women-owned businesses, and they had their event over at Kellogg Arena recently that was very successful. Workforce Development has had two pre-employment preparation fairs in May with over 300 people attending. Some of them had resume assistance and interviewing practices and those types of things that help them be more competitive when they get in to try and find jobs. And, the Kindergarten Readiness Action Team, that's a long one. They've launched a shared services model which will help local child care center pool needed resources and support some sustainability. What does that mean? That means that a lot of the child care, licensed child care in the area, you have you have great teachers and great women who are running these organizations and don't really have time to do all the insurance and the daycare and the child care and all the different things that paperwork that goes with that. And to get quality candidates who are great with the kids, it's best left to develop that capacity somewhere else. And the Community Foundation currently is housing that as a shared service model to get better teachers out there with the kids.
One of the things I heard you talking about was making Battle Creek a more fun place, a better place to raise a family. And, last year, just about this time, I think that Pokemon craze hit. And I was down at Clara's on the River listening to the music outside, and it was unbelievable, the electricity in the air of having 1,000 people all of a sudden walking along that river, stopping to hear the music, stopping to chat with people who were down there and interacting, and it was all sorts of different people. I mean, is that what you're hoping to that we'll get find a way to make that happen without Pokemon Go?
Absolutely. I mean, we want to create, as we said, a place where individuals want to live, work, and play. And so there are lots of conversations happening to ensure that we make movement towards that goal. I think in these committees, also, it's creating opportunities for great conversations to identify other priorities and opportunities in areas where we need to create additional change. And one example of that is now we're doing a transportation study right now to decide what are the barriers that are getting in the way of individuals accessing the opportunities that Battle Creek has.
But to your point about culture vitality and the Pokemon craze, that is an area that we could use some help. I know that the Community Foundation has some ideas how to integrate festivals differently into this community. I think we're moving away from the breakfast table a little bit, more towards international festivals, honoring the cultures of all the different people and peoples who are part of this community. So if anybody is out there who has a real interest in how to maintain a vibrant downtown core and get things going that are really of interest to the people, that's an area that we could really use some help. And there's some cool things going on. I know everybody's talked about Battle Rock and some of those other things. I know BC Mams does a lot of things on the river, and they have their Lollapalooza festival. But we need to do more, and that's an area that somebody could help.
When we come back, we'll not only focus on ways that people can help and ways that people can get involved, but where we're at with goals, what's next, and how we've done in this first half of 2017. We're talking BC Vision. Vince Pavone is part of that. He's from Lakeview Ford-Lincoln, and also Kim Carter, Superintendent of Battle Creek Schools, is our guest as well. We are talking BC Vision with Vince Pavone and Kim Carter in our studio today. What have we accomplished so far? I mean, you've mentioned some of the things, but what would you say if somebody said, "Well, what are the one or two best things that have come out of BC Vision so far?"
Of course, I'm going to have to say a $51 million investment into the children of Battle Creek Public Schools. That has been one of the greatest accomplishments. I think we also know that there's been some investments into the capital area. They had a goal, and that was already reached in February. So there are a lot of great things happening as a result of this work.
Yeah, so that $51 million for Battle Creek Public Schools, that would not have happened without BC Vision.
I don't think so. I think that was the catalyst for change because it was anchored on some of the research that was happening as a part of the BC Vision process. It enabled us to actually highlight the inequities that were existing within the community, and then it was a call to action.
And we've heard you speak with Richard, and we've heard others talking about some of the things that are going to change and some of the goals for that $51 million. It's very exciting. We look forward to hearing more about that and watching the progress. That's spread out over 5 years, is that right?
That's correct, over 5 years.
Yeah. What do you think, Vince? I mean, obviously, 51 million is a pretty big deal. Well, what else has been accomplished that you think is really great?
You know, I like to talk about metrics, but in this case, I really talk about the spirit of Battle Creek and in terms of people coming together and aligning themselves with the vision. I think that that's what's really more important to me, that we as a community have to continue to understand that the future is ours, and we have to make that future. I mean, we get mired in our past sometimes, which we have a past that is great and full and rich and historical, but we need to focus on the future. And this is our opportunity when we have our two major stakeholders, and that's the Kellogg Company and the Kellogg Foundation, who are committed to creating a future that is driven by the community, but with their assistance financially, emotionally, vested with their personnel. I think Kellogg Company had 3 individuals other than John that were there at the meeting on Thursday, which is a huge commitment. So to go to those meetings and to mobilize people towards our community goals is really what I see. And I remember after the 100 days, Lejeune said, we'll work as long as it takes to create a community that works together to meet its goals. As long as it takes is a long time. So we are still just at the beginning. So if anybody out there thinks that this movement, this visioning process is over or it's too late, it's really just beginning. It's never going to end.
But it's amazing how fast it came together and how far it's come.
Maybe fast for BCK, but Kim and I might beg to differ. But yes, it has been great because of the hard work of community members, some volunteers, some people whose missions as in nonprofit work and private have aligned themselves with these goals and aspirations for the community, and it's just kind of organized us and prioritized us in a different way.
You mentioned one thing you could use help with is ideas on how to make this a more fun community, a better place to raise a family. You're looking for ideas. What else are you looking for right now to support BC Vision?
We're looking for time from individuals, ideas. We want to engage the community in this process. And as Vince said, we've done a lot of great things, but there's a lot more work to be done. And I hope that individuals will find a place in this movement so that they can help us continue this work.
What would be the first step to get involved if somebody was thinking, I want to be part of this?
I think the first step is to check out the website. I think it's a great place to start. I want to kind of key that up. It's www.battlecreekvision.com. And you can find a lot of information there, especially about the individual committees that are working and those tasks that we're working on, and an idea for where they can become a part of this process.
That's spelled out, battlecreekvision.com.
Correct. I'll also give out the number, which is 269-719-8888. So individuals can also call that number to get more information.
Kim Carter, Superintendent, Battle Creek Public Schools, thank you for joining us today. Vince Pavone, thank you very much, and thanks both for your hard work and BC Vision.
Thanks for
Tim.
having us.